Every MLB player who forced rule changes explained. Ray Chapman, the tragedy that changed everything. On August 16, 1920, during a game between the Cleveland Indians and New York Yankees, Ray Chapman stepped into the batter's box. But unfortunately, he never stepped out. Yankees pitcher Carl Mays, who had a submarine-style delivery, threw a fastball that hit Chapman hard in the head, and he collapsed instantly. Unfortunately, there were no helmets back then, and the ball had been used so much it was practically invisible. The next morning, Chapman died in the hospital, and it became a moment that left baseball speechless. The league didn't waste time. They told umpires to remove any dirty or worn-out balls during games so hitters could actually see what was coming. Before that, pitchers could rub balls in mud, scuff them, or darken them however they liked. But Chapman's death ended all that. The league also banned spitballs at the end of the 1920 season. But before Chapman died, spitballs were perfectly legal, even though they made the ball unpredictable and hard to track. And even though batting helmets wouldn't become mandatory until the 1950s and 60s, Chapman's tragedy was the wake-up call the league couldn't ignore. Don Hoke, the guy who tried to cheat the system. Don Hoke wasn't exactly a household name, but he still managed to find his way into the MLB rulebook. On April 21, 1957, while playing for the Cincinnati Redlegs, Hoke was running the bases when he suddenly decided to get involved in the defense. He fielded a live-batted ball and tossed it to the shortstop like he was part of the other team. The move left umpires and fans confused. But what made things even weirder was that this wasn't a one-off. Just the day before, his teammate Johnny Temple pulled a similar stunt. In both cases, the runner was called out, but the batter still got credit for a single. The league realized this kind of behavior opened up a loophole that could easily be abused, so they acted fast. From that point on, if a runner touches a live ball on purpose, they're out, and so is the batter. No more clever tricks and no more pretending to be on both teams. Don Hoke might have thought he was being smart, but all he really did was convince the league to slam the door shut on that kind of nonsense. Gaylord Perry, the Spitball legend. Gaylord Perry was a Hall of Famer, a 300-game winner, and a guy who basically turned rule-breaking into an art form. Because even though spitballs had been banned since 1920, Perry was famous for throwing pitches that danced and dipped like they had a mind of their own. He never outright admitted it, but when he released his book in 1974 called Me and the Spitter, he casually confirmed what everyone already knew. He had been using illegal substances on the ball for years. The league couldn't let that slide. So that same year, they updated Rule 8.02. If an umpire even suspected that a pitcher was messing with the ball, whether with spit, Vaseline, or any foreign substance, they could call an automatic ball. And if the pitcher did it again, he could be ejected on the spot. Gaylord Perry didn't just bend the rules, he also made MLB tighten them. And even though he rarely got caught, his antics, and of course his tell-all book, forced the league to stop looking the other way. John Boozer, caught cheating during warm-ups. John Boozer probably didn't think he'd be remembered for getting ejected before even throwing a pitch, but that's exactly what happened. On May 2, 1968, Boozer was warming up for the Philadelphia Phillies when umpire Ed Vargo noticed something suspicious. Boozer kept touching his mouth while standing on the mound, which was a red flag even during warm-ups. Vargo gave him 2 warnings, but Boozer didn't stop. So Vargo started calling balls, even though the batter wasn't ready. Eventually, Boozer got ejected, and his manager Gene Mauch was tossed too. It became one of those bizarre baseball moments that ended up changing how umpires handled things. From then on, the league made it clear that the rules around foreign substances applied at all times, not just during live action. If a pitcher's on the mound, even if it's just warm-up tosses, they're expected to follow the rules. Boozer's case showed that even a little mouth-touching during downtime could raise suspicions about illegal grip aids. Boozer didn't throw a spitball that day, but he didn't have to. His strange warm-up routine turned into a real example of how MLB was cracking down harder than ever before. Buster Posey, the collision that broke the rules. Buster Posey was more than just a great catcher. He was the face of the San Francisco Giants, and one of the best in the game. But on May 25, 2011, in a game against the Florida Marlins, Posey's season came to a violent end. Scott Cousins, trying to score from third, crashed directly into Posey at home plate. It was a brutal collision that caused Posey's ankle to snap, forcing him to miss the rest of the season. The hit sparked an immediate debate. Should catchers really be sitting ducks at home plate? Was this kind of play necessary? Well, MLB decided it wasn't. Fast forward to 2014, and they introduced Rule 7.13, also known as the Posey Rule. It said runners had to run directly to the plate and couldn't go out of their way just to hit the catcher. It also limited how much the catcher could block the path, unless he had the ball. And just like that, the days of full-speed body checks at the plate were over. Posey's injury showed that the game didn't need collisions to be exciting. And thanks to that scary moment, baseball finally figured out how to protect one of its most vulnerable positions. Chase Utley, the slide that got ugly. It was October 10th, 2015, and Game 2 of the National League Division Series between the Dodgers and Mets was heating up. In the 7th inning, Chase Utley tried to break up a double play. But instead of sliding into second base, he slid straight into Ruben Tejada's legs like a freight train with no brakes. Unfortunately, the impact caused Tejada's fibula to snap hard, and he was stretchered off the field immediately. Fans were outraged. Mets players were furious, and even Dodgers supporters had to admit it looked bad. Utley never even touched the base. Somehow he was called safe, even though Tejada was lying in a heap. The incident was so ugly that MLB decided it was time to finally fix how base running works. In February 2016, MLB and the Players Association introduced a new rule that made this kind of takedown illegal. It said a runner must make a bona fide attempt to reach the base, not just dive bomb into a fielder's knees. And if they don't, both the runner and the batter can be called out. This rule is known as the Utley Rule, and it saved a lot of ankles since. Everyone who took too long, the clock finally arrived. Baseball used to be the only sport where time just didn't matter, as games would drag on for over 3 hours, sometimes even more. Pitchers took long walks around the mound, and batters stepped out of the box after every pitch to adjust their batting gloves like they were preparing for surgery. Teams also stalled with endless pickoff moves and infield shifts that made hitting a nightmare. By 2022, fans were frustrated and TV viewers were vanishing. Because baseball wasn't slow and thoughtful anymore, it was just boring. So, in 2023, the league finally snapped out of it. They rolled out a pitch clock. Yes, pitchers now had 15 seconds to throw when bases were empty and 20 seconds when there were runners. They were only allowed 2 pickoff attempts per at-bat. Any more than that and the runner got a free base. MLB also limited the shift. This meant that infielders had to stay in their zones, making it easier for hitters to actually hit. And these weren't just small tweaks. They changed how the entire game felt. The goal was to speed things up and bring the action back. Sure, not everyone loved it at first, but most people agreed it was long overdue, and it actually worked. Luis Ortiz, gambling concerns, and weird pitches. On June 15 and again on June 27, 2025, Cleveland Guardians pitcher Luis Ortiz opened his starts with pitches that didn't just miss the strike zone. They missed the zip code. One sailed high, while the other was a wild bounce. Neither looked remotely like a pro-level throw. But it wasn't just bad pitching. What made it suspicious was the betting activity around it. Gambling companies flagged both games after noticing heavy bets placed specifically on the outcome of Ortiz's first pitch. That's not a normal thing to bet on, unless you know something that we don't. MLB took it seriously, and they placed Ortiz on paid leave starting July 3, 2025, while they looked into what was going on. No official rule was changed yet, but placing him on paid leave shook things up. One bad pitch, especially 2 in a row, can send up red flags all over the place. Whether Ortiz was actually involved or not, this case has caused the MLB to begin reviewing its already existing laws on gambling. Matt Strahm, pitchers want grip too. In April 2025, Phillies reliever Matt Strahm said what a lot of pitchers were thinking. If batters get to use all kinds of gear to help them hit, why can't pitchers use anything to help them grip the ball? But he wasn't asking to lather up with glue, just something like pine tar for control. What sparked it all was the rise of torpedo bats, which are new designs that packed more weight into the barrel and gave hitters a big boost. Pitchers had already lost their favorite trick when MLB banned sticky stuff in 2021. Since then, guys like Strahm have been frustrated. Grip helps control helps safety, and nobody wants fastballs sailing into helmets. But the rules stayed one-sided. Batters get fancy bats and batting gloves, while pitchers get dry fingers and the threat of ejection. Strahm's comments haven't changed the rules just yet, but he's made enough noise and has sparked a new wave of debate inside MLB. If this debate gets loud enough, then there's every chance the rule for pitchers will change in the near future. So far, there have been no updates. But when the rules eventually shift, and they will, you can thank Strahm for making it loud. The Yankees, finally ending the beard ban. Since 1973, the New York Yankees haven't allowed their players to grow beards or have long hair. And this wasn't even an MLB rule. It was a Yankees-only policy created by former owner George Steinbrenner. Yet players had to be clean-shaven, like it was military school with baseball bats. Over the years, plenty of stars had to change their look just to wear the famous Yankees uniform. Johnny Damon shaved off his iconic caveman beard, and Garrett Cole trimmed up as soon as he signed his deal. Fans accepted it as the Yankee way, even though no one really explained why it mattered. But then, on February 21, 2025, the rule finally got scrapped. Hal Steinbrenner, George's son, decided it was time. As long as players looked neat, they could wear beards again. The clubhouse instantly looked a little more relaxed and a little more like the rest of the league. Now, this wasn't a rule that changed how the game is played, but it still made headlines across the sport. Even the Yankees figured out that facial hair isn't the enemy. So guys, which of these rule changes shocked you the most? Tell us in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more baseball action.